Gentleman from Virginia, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome you all and thank you for being here. Obviously, as we discuss your budget, we have to take into account the fact that certainly the scope of your regulation necessarily reflects what your requirements will be, and I think that some of the discussions about the scope of your regulation will help us figure out where we end up in terms of funding for your agency, and let me also thank you for your work, your important work that you do. I come from a rural district in Southside Virginia, and we have many main streets all across this rural district, and the relationship of small banks to our business community is the lifeblood for job creation. I have places in my district that have unemployment as high as 25%. So job creation is very important. Getting capital on the street is very important, and you all know how important that is to job creation. With respect to the derivatives regulation under Dodd-Frank, obviously small banks are going to be subject to new clearing requirements under the SEC and CFTC unless they are exempted as end users. And when you stop and think about the high cost of regulations and the small part of the swaps market that small banks comprise, I'd like to know from you, Mr. Cook, whether or not the SEC will exercise its authority to exempt small banks as end users.
Thank you, Congressman. The proposal that the Commission issued with respect to end users did include a exemption for small financial institutions. This was an exemption, as you may know, that the statute directed us to consider providing to basically cover small banks and exempt them from the mandatory clearing requirement. That is in the proposal, so that'll be something which we're requesting. That is in the proposal, so it's something we're requesting comment on, and the Commission will take those comments into consideration.
Thank you. My second question deals with, we would go to Ms. Rominger, and it deals with the private equity investment advisors. I know that Mr. Royce and Mr. Peters have talked a little bit about it, and you talked about scalability. I'd like to know a little bit more about what you mean there. I would subscribe to some of the same sentiments that have been expressed with respect to private equity investment advisors, and I think that over-regulation of them could certainly lead to lost opportunities to preserve jobs and create jobs, because obviously at least a big part of what they do relates directly to jobs. And so I'd like to hear more about the scalability issue that you talked about, and I'd also like to know whether or not under Section 206A of the Investment Advisor Act, whether or not you all would consider exempting private equity firms pursuant to Dodd-Frank until Congress can take further action with respect to that issue.
Right now, it's my understanding that we're receiving comments on the proposals, and I've been impressed in my short time at the Commission with the high degree of thought and content that comes through in the comment process, and we certainly will be very attuned to some of the issues that you are mentioning and raising here, and that will have and will come through in the comment process.
Well, do you agree that SEC has that exemptive authority under the Act, and will the SEC consider that?
You know, again, this is a matter that I look forward to spending a great deal more time on with my staff.
Is there anybody else who can help with on this question?
I don't think we have someone here at the table who is familiar with what the exemptive authority might be under this provision, but I think we'd be happy to get back to you with a written response. Okay.
Well, I would appreciate that, and in the event that you're not that's not something that is viewed to be within the within the authority of the SEC, certainly I would ask you to consider postponing the registration requirements to the extent that can be done to allow Congress to give further guidance on this issue.
And we're certainly happy to get back to you with a written response.
And one last question to anybody, but maybe we could start with you, Ms. Rominger. I'm very concerned about the implementation of Dodd-Frank and the hundreds of new registrants that will be suddenly will have to be regulated. And have there been efforts to identify what kind of burden this is going to be on the states, who also have, in many cases, concurrent jurisdiction over these matters? You know, are we going to be passing huge unfunded mandates down to the states when we suddenly have this increased registration? And that go to anybody.
It's, you know, I'm sure the states are in, their degree of preparedness, I would imagine, spans a range. And I would certainly hope that they would be prepared to take this on.
I would just add, in addition to what Ms. Rominger said, there has been an ongoing dialogue between the SEC and the states regarding the transfer of private fund advisors under 100 million. And the states, we get on calls biweekly to talk about the transfer and the readiness around that transfer. The states are very organized in regard to their strategy with regard to those advisors. So there is an ongoing dialogue that's cross-functional in the agency with the states about that transfer.
Mr. Chairman, could I just follow up? Well,
Time has expired, but if Congressman Stivers would like to